What's up guys, my name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stack YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to talk about a subject we haven't done a video in quite a while. We're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to our hearts. We'll talk about GPU mining. To me personally, it's in a pretty bad spot, arguably as bad of a spot as it was right after the ETH merge. Okay, doesn't mean it's over. I know we're going to see all in the comments GPU mining is dead, but to me there still is viability. It's just definitely even more bleak to me, at least, since even back then, right? We're going to talk about as to why. We'll look at the different things going on, what the outlook could potentially be, and why we think what we think, okay? If that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So, this is a tough subject, man, because this is one that is definitely near and dear to our hearts. Me specifically, I mean, this is what got me into crypto, period. Okay, a lot of us got in on that 2020, 2021 Ethereum hype with GPU mining, and it's a damn shame, right? In reality, I think what I loved about it back then, obviously the profitability and such, but it just made it so accessible for anybody to get into mining with hardware that you can get that's not too expensive. The time the prices were obviously crazy if you paid resale and such, but if you were able to get your hands on a card at a reasonable price, you were able to get in, you were able to scale, you were able to grow, which in reality, it's honestly the reason I was able to scale into what I've been able to scale to now, which I'm just a small at-home miner anyway, but it allowed me to go from a little 1660 super into all the crap we got now. It literally all came from that. Right, and that was kind of the beauty of it was back then. Things definitely changed and things didn't plan out to like how we were hoping they would, right? My plan from the get-go, again, I made a very specific plan from the beginning of this bear market, right? And we, for the most part, stuck to it. Currently, right now, though, the plan was to be in GPU mining. The hope is that it would pick up quite a bit, maybe the end of 2024, hopefully be well off by now. That never panned out, right? We were definitely looking for those signs, and that was realistically the goal, to pivot from the ASICs, because again, we pivoted to ASICs right before the ETH merge. We sold the majority of our cards to buy ASICs, and that was the plan. Mine and HODL for the 2-3 years, hopefully at the end of 2024, sell those ASICs and go back into GPUs, and that, again, like we mentioned, that part just never played out. Okay. Currently, if we look at the current status, this is on hashrate.no at a 10 cent kilowatt hour, and this is with the CMP 170HX, which typically isn't a card we would really show, but because of how much the price has gone down, you could essentially trade 3070s for these things, although a lot of the inventory on eBay is dried up now, but they were available for months and months for anywhere in the $200 to $300 range, okay? But even on this higher end card, which again was crazy expensive during the ETH run, profits are not too great, right? Meow coin I wouldn't even factor in because of the freaking volume and the emissions being so low. It's may make you that much now, but in a couple hours probably not. Quai being the first one, 98 cents revenue, 42 cent a day profit, which is honestly not bad. Zeno, 90 cents revenue, 37 cents profit. Ironfish, 71 cents revenue, 27 cent profit. So there is profits to be had. Is it a lot? Is it something that's going to make you want to buy GPUs and should? Honestly, no, it shouldn't, right? Realistically, if you're GPU mining, it's because you have solar, very cheap electric, and have cards that were already paid off from the previous cycle that are still running. Right? There's a reason I haven't purchased a GPU for mining since 2021, right? It just personally just hasn't made sense. That doesn't mean I'm out of the scene and everything's done. No, like we've mentioned right after the merge, use that knowledge, use that insight. We've been here, we see what projects potentially will do well, which ones potentially won't do well. Use that knowledge, right? The advantage of being here in this space is that we're able to get into coins essentially at ground zero. Right? Especially if you get in super early, meaning yield is going to be great and you have to see what's going on if you're spec mining. But again, it only pans out if it's something that's worthwhile. Okay, 99.9% of the crap that's come out these past 3 years has been straight trash, and that's why we've been so harsh on it. Like Meowcoin, a lot of people shield this thing to all hell. Trash. Okay, a lot of these others, a lot of these aren't even on here anymore. Like AI Power Grid, Wagalela. All this straight trash that people shield where did you think it was going to go? Right? Hopefully, when you guys held on to those things, hopefully it does well for you. But I'm looking for things that have potential, right? And even at this point, if you are in that situation where you do have that cheap electric and you have cards left over, like for me, I do have a little 10 card rig left that I'll spec mine here and there. We have been fairly active up until the beginning of this year, right? We actually were GPU mining the previous 2 years all the way through because, again, my viewpoint is break even or better. I do degen into a lot of these things. I'm still paying attention to the market, looking for things that are potentially viable and kind of go from there, right? For the most part, though, the success has been buying the coins and then selling them during those times. Hopefully that's something, especially if you've been here for the past few years, if you haven't done, make sure you kind of do, right? That's definitely been the difference between somebody who's been doing well these past 3 years and somebody who's been struggling. Okay, like I know we're gonna get the GPU mining's dead comments, and that's fine, right? For me though, it's been excellent still. Okay, and this is again not really mining that little bit. Again, 12 cards isn't just gonna yield you a whole lot, right? Especially in a short amount of time. It's been buying those coins, but it's been being in here, being in the trenches, and kind of buying and selling as they go up. Like for example, from the past few years, ones that have done extremely well, if you sold on those pumps, and this is what we're talking about, that being active, like trading, like looking at it, like again, guys, if you're sitting on a 3, 5, 10, 15x, and you're not taking any profits, like you'd really need to reevaluate that. Okay, we've been very open. A lot of the GPU mining update videos we did were during these peak times where we talked about it, right? It's opportunity, and we talked about which coins we bought and why we bought them, right? A lot of the narratives were fairly simple. It was the AI hype. Anything with the word AI in it was a big thing. Anything that had a reason. XNA is one that I remember. They had a very aggressive emission schedule. It was like a reduction every like 2 weeks or something, and it had the AI name. There were certain narratives why we bought down here. And again, if you're getting a 15x in a couple of weeks, you need to be taking profits. Okay, this is something hopefully a lot of you guys have learned, because a lot of these things tanked big time. Okay, the majority of these, for me at least, weren't long-term holds. They were kind of like degen plays. If they do something, I didn't think they'd do something that quickly. Realistically, maybe something like this around this time. A lot of these pumped early though. A lot of these had a April 2023 pump and November, December 2023 pump. Okay, and a lot of them happened at the same time. It was all GPU mineable coins, and it wasn't a coincidence, right? It was mining whales, market makers, whatever it is. Again, if there's an incentive for somebody to pump it, there's good potential there. Okay. But this one being a great example is that if you took profits anywhere on these pumps, you did okay. If you mined and held all the way down here, life sucks, right? Or if you were mining during this time and then selling every month and didn't hold on to anything, it also sucks, right? Because then you only had this small window of time where you profited, and even then not really, because what also happened during this time? Hash rate and difficulty went up, your yield went down dramatically. Again, it's stacking during these times, whether it's mining it, buying it, whatever, and selling on pumps. Okay, and we saw a lot of that. The reason we're saying we did have a good bear market even with GPU coins is buying here, selling up here. In Radiant's case, initially early on, I remember that post. I did a post and I was joking about it. I was like, you guys are welcome, it's gonna pump, and it freaking did. We sold down here in the beginning of this April pump, and that's actually what we used to buy our FPGAs. And then it did another like 3x in the next couple of weeks after that. But again, I can't be mad. If you have a 10x, you have to take profits. Okay, you have to get this mindset of mining and hodling forever. If you're not pumping anything, then sure, why not? It's worth the risk. But if you were getting a freaking 10x, sell it. Like, yes, it can go higher. Maybe you just sell only half. Maybe I should have done that, but got to take those profits, right? Caspa's another one. Although this one was different, we did take profits here and there, definitely not as aggressively. And the difference here is that this was more of a long-term play. There was something special here that we noted. This is one that I did purchase my bag in October 22. We did videos about it during that time. We did videos as to why we were so bullish on it, right? Especially that month after. The one standout, remember that video, is that we're comparing it during the time of the FTX collapse. Right in the middle of when shit was hitting the fan, everything was over. That was like the bottom for BTC, yet Caspa was just stair stepping up. Not just a random wick, it was stair stepping that whole time up. That, like I mentioned in that video, was a huge sign that there might be something special here. And definitely has been. Dynex was another one that we took profits on. Again, this is one that I had zero interest holding because of all the drama with one of their founders and whether or not an individual was involved with the project who was a scammer. They kept denying it, even though the signs were there. And they kept denying, and then months later, they're like, oh, yeah, he was involved at a limited capacity. All kinds of bullshit. So immediately, as soon as we see red flags, I'm immediately out. So this is one we did sell. Many opportunities to sell at $1. If you guys bought this thing at 10 cents or lower than that, hopefully you guys took profits because this thing is all the way back down to the bottom. Nexa also had a pump in April 2023, again, like some of the others. Massive rally, and it's currently lower than what it was initially. Okay, so the common theme here is, again, if you mined it and you only held it, right, you didn't take profits, shit sucks, right? All of them, with the exception of Caspa, went back down. Okay, so again, you got to be able to take profits, and again, it's looking at which coins can potentially do well. Again, like we've mentioned, it's a game of like probabilities. Which ones have the highest probability of potentially doing something? Is there a certain narrative? Is there a reason for it? Looking for those kinds of things. One big difference though, and this is why for me personally, at least I'm viewing it as a worse situation than back then, is the fact that I'm not even a person who's in the trenches. I don't really see a lot of value in a lot of what's here. Okay, even on the D-Jenny side, even on the maybe, there's so much potential with other coins that it just doesn't make sense, right? So like, look again, looking at this list here, Meow Coin, trash. Kwai is the one for me that does have the most potential here. We'll talk as to why here in a moment. Zano has actually done well. They've had good moments here and there. If you look at the emissions, it's only 6,000, but look at that volume, 649,000. Ironfish is one that I was bullish on the tech. Not bullish on the coin anymore, and we'll talk as to why here momentarily. Chlor does get a lot of use. We can definitely see here by the volume, 524,000. It just, weren't they going to do some hybrid proof of stake thing? I don't even remember. It's still mineable apparently, but something to factor in there. Epic Cash, I don't even know what that is. Zealous is one that was popular because it's a lower power coin. As a project, though, it's not one I would personally hold. Hopefully it does well for you guys. I know a lot of you guys are still big into this thing. I'm personally just not a fan. Ergo is probably the only other one I would be hanging on to. It's the only one that does have potential in my eyes. Beam, not a fan of. Ravencoin, not a fan of. Carlson is trash. Flux is now gonna be trash. I'm not a fan of what they're doing now. Neoxa has always been trash. XNA and Dynex are past their prime. Next, we have our catalyst for them, but they got Dragon Balled, and that's probably what's going to tank them because the community doesn't give a shit about it, which is extremely unfortunate. Tari, never been a fan, and that's kind of it, right? So the big difference here is that there's not necessarily a whole lot that even on like the buying side, like, oh, maybe this can do well. That's kind of the big difference for me back then to now, right? We had like a Lithium, Caspa. There was quite a few coins that looked like they had potential, and some of them did, right? That's one massive difference. Profitability on a 3070, again, not very great. Okay, so it can be break even or better. Again, you got to be better than 10 cents. So they are there. Again, it's just very few coins. Like Flex is going to be gone here, so that's going to change. Kwai would be the winner here. And I feel super confident, especially on a 3070, that it'll remain profitable? Not necessarily, right? So, again, my goal is break even or better. As long as it fits that criteria, I'm good with mining it. As long as I feel confident, it'll remain that amount, right? I'm not necessarily super confident with Kwai. Not necessarily. It's one I would probably rather purchase. If I had something more efficient, such as these, or even the CMP, the 10210s, I believe are also extremely well in ProgPow. So that is something to consider also. That's where the name of the game would be. So overall, again, it's very similar in the fact that it's not making a whole lot. The viability would be, again, mining and hodling for a potential wick. The problem is, I don't feel too great about any of these, right? Especially considering how cheap a lot of the altcoins are still currently, even larger caps in comparison to where they were. Farther down the road, maybe we'll see if something pops off, but at least for now, that's kind of the reason I'm much more bearish on it now than even back then. Okay. One that has been doing better is CPUs, right? CPUs, they're a lot harder to scale though. The reason I'm not too big is just I'm not into any of these coins, right? The majority of the coins I just don't see doing too well. Monero obviously can. It's been a very proven coin, but it's not enough profitability to justify kind of burning the CPU, right? There can be times, I mean, again, you have to be smart about it whenever you see big potential. Like one that I know a lot of people got burned, not necessarily burned, but they super regret is what Zeph is not selling during the freaking run up. Okay, this thing went up to freaking, what was it, 50 cents? It was crazy. Let's look at the price. No, not 50 cents, $50, bro. It's down to 77 cents right now. A lot of people learned their lesson of taking profits with this thing. Okay, so that's an extreme example. So some of these can pop off. Again, you're speculating, but again, when you, for me at least, I look at the game of probabilities, right? Which ones can potentially do well, which ones are likely to do well. I'm just not really a fan of any of these, right? It's where it's got to be. Let's go down the list. And this is one, again, this is where the argument goes with what to do with your GPUs, right? So obviously it's not a bad time to still sell the GPUs because you can still, especially like 3070s, they're still going at $250, $300. But again, that's also what they were going for 3 years ago. The best play, as it turns out, looking retroactively, was selling during those times and either buying other hardware like ASICs or buying coins. Okay, this is the video where we're talking about DCAing. Again, this video is November 9th, 2022. This is around the time of the FTX collapse. Again, you can see the prices of some of these coins. And again, if you sold your GPUs, which were still overvalued, and you bought anything during this time, again, BTC was 16,000, ETH was a little over 1,000, BNB was 287 bucks. That's crazy, right? Solana was at like $16. I think I'll scroll down here in a second. You can see some of these others. Dogecoin was at 8 cents. Solana was at 16 bucks, right? So like we mentioned in this video, although that may not be the bottom, that's pretty damn close where you should probably be going in pretty hard. And realistically, that's when it made sense to sell your GPUs and buy freaking coins, right? Buy the Solanas, buy Bitcoin, buy whatever, and make out, right? So again, it's like kind of learning the lessons of the cycles, how things go, how things feel, and going through them, okay? So as far as which coins have potential, like for me, again, I still have the 10 card rig. Should I be throwing it back on? Probably will here pretty soon. In order to do what? Again, out of the list, the only two coins currently that are mineable, it would be Ergo and Quai. Quai specifically because it actually is something different. They are actually doing something unique. So that's number one. That's a big thing. Number two is marketing and promoting of this thing. Okay, it is a very tiny coin, $25 million market cap, yet they are promoting the hell out of this thing. They are all over the place. They're always doing spaces. They're always on people's channels. They're always putting their name out there as much as they can, right? And those are the types of things you want to see. On top of the example that BTC Vegas, they were actually there. They actually even sponsored an event with Kraken, right? So immediately when I saw that, I was like, oh, what's going on there, right? So they are establishing that relationship with a major exchange, even being such a small coin, to the point where it looks like they are going to eventually down the road have a listing with them, which would be huge, again, especially out of these small GPU mineable coins. When you look at all the others, none of them have really gone anywhere, and especially with ZegX going down, that was a huge downfall for a lot of them. Okay, but when we look on here, this is their roadmap. You can see here chains that they're going to be adding. Quai is definitely on here. Okay, another one that is on here is Tari. They have it listed as W. I'm assuming that's a wrapped Tari. It's going to be another network or whatever. But this is one that, although that's a bullish thing, you have the argument that, okay, well, Tari's on here too. I'm not a fan of how they're doing their marketing, right? The difference with Quai, for example, is that their founder, their people are in those spaces. They're all over the place. Bitcoin spaces, mining spaces, what they are like everywhere. And they're actively always talking about it, discussing it, which I love. And contrary to like Tari, for example, their marketing is with paying a bunch of these garbage ass shillers on YouTube, and that was the extent of their marketing, right? Which is something that is completely different versus their founder or their people being on all these spaces talking about it, what differentiates them from other blockchains and why they could be beneficial. A lot of different things versus stuff like this, where like dude with this money, the stuff like that, like immediate turn off, right? Like crap like this, like people you've never heard of. Again, these guys just shilled the hell out of these things. Okay, and that to me, when I see stuff like that, and that's the majority of your promotion, is people who have nothing to do with mining, nothing to do with it, not a good look. Okay. As we look at the charts of some of these coins, again, Zealous is a popular one. I'm personally just not a fan of the project. Hopefully it does something like this again for you guys who are holding, back up to $30. But again, it was something that was at $30 down to $1.67. Can it do it again? Sure. Is it likely? For me, again, I play the game of probabilities, and to me, it's a no, right? If I was more into the project, maybe. I know another one that was popular in the community was like Warhawk, for example, but all the recent drama with them going on and kind of like pissing off the mining community, which is their main community, not necessarily a good look either. Ergo is one that definitely has potential, just because again they've been around in the cycles. They're doing a lot. Does everything they're doing necessarily translate to number go up? Not always necessarily, right? But they are definitely active. They are definitely building. Is it one that I'm degenning into? No, right? Realistically, I would be more into Quai, just it being such a smaller market cap. Arguably more Pumpamentals. That's where it'd be at. Flux is one that is going to go essentially proof of stake with all their garbage going on. Which, to me, it's a wrap, right? Their main catalyst, for me at least, was they were going to have the halving in a month or so. That could have been bullish just because, again, their circuit supply and what's actually out there. But now the fact that that's all changing, that was the only real catalyst I see with them. Again, a lot of broken promises with them. The fact that they shitted on like proof of stake coins and all this stuff so much, yet that's the route they're going. Also kind of doesn't say, well, it's not exactly proof of stake, but essentially you are having to stake. It's a whole different thing. I'm not even going to get into it too much. I don't necessarily care anymore, so they are done for me. Chlor AI is another one on the chart, is here. Can go up again. Again, this is an interesting one because it actually does get used a lot. So this is why it does have potential. Again, $10 million market cap. Is it one I'm necessarily degenning into? No. Would it be a bad one? No, it's one that could be worthwhile. We're going to get a repeat of this where it's up to like 30 cents or something, 38 cents. Potentially, right? It does have the AI narrative. It actually is getting used. And this was one of the big disappointments when compared it to Flux. Flux had all the backing, all this stuff going on for years and years. Yet these guys, minimal money and essentially had a working product, right? That is still getting utilized right now. Ironfish being another one. This one, price action has been horrible. It's down to 20 cents. The downfall here, though, is what happened with their project pretty recently. I don't know if any guys caught it. I don't know if I touched on it too much. This is one that kind of killed it for me. Again, the tech is good. The team is good. It's just, I don't know if the token's going to do good because of this event. So Base actually acquired their team. They acquired their devs. Very interesting change. This happened back in March. This was a while ago. I don't even know if I did a video on it. But this was a huge disappointment for the coin. Not necessarily the project or the tech. This, to me, validates the tech, and this is why we're so bullish on it. I just wish they would have taken over the whole chain. They would have just brought Iron over to Base, or instead of taking their dev team. So Base acquires team at POW blockchain Ironfish to develop privacy preserving primitives. So again, this to me is definitely justifying why we're so bullish on them, and the tech is just a weird development with them. Okay, and as we go down, Ironfish confirmed on X that it's joining Base to scale privacy for users. Its founder, Elena, will continue to serve on the foundation's board, indicating that Ironfish will maintain its governance structure despite the development team joining Base. Right, which again, extremely unique situation. There's still a catalyst there though, because if they are gonna move the team to Base, that we've already seen Ironfish on Base actually. This can promote it more. It's really hard to say until what they're working on comes out to see if it is something that can put more emphasis on Iron being on Base, or if they're gonna. It's hard to say how it's gonna play out, right? But when the whole dev team gets bought out and goes onto a different thing, it's not a good look for the coin, right? It's again a very weird situation, and that's why again very bullish on what they were doing, and that definitely validates it. But again, for the coin itself, not too great. Raven is another one that's popular. I've never been a big fan, but again, it's one that we do a lot of comparisons with just because, again, community is everything. A lot of people like to say, like, oh, we definitely need all this adoption, we need smart contracts, we need all this and that. And for me, again, as we've seen, it's pumpamentals, right? There's many cases all over the spectrum that kind of invalidate that. It's literally marketing, community, pumpamentals, okay, over everything. Even coins in the top 15, top 20, right? For you guys who like Cardano, like ADA, it's essentially a Charles Hoskinson meme coin, a community coin. As far as the chain goes, if you guys actually use it, it's trash in comparison to everything else. If you look at the TVL, if you look at the activity, if you look at the on-chain revenue, it is trash and should be nowhere near where it's at. But why is it so popular? Because of the community. Okay, it's not because of the tech, it's not because of the adoption. That shit does not get used. It is horrible to use in comparison to the others. It's literally because people are bullish on Charles Hoskinson and they like the community, right? In reality, in many cases, sometimes that's all it takes, right? And Raven, and that's a big reason that their market cap is still so big. I mean, it's a $240 million market cap for a relatively unknown coin in the regular world, right? It's, for us, we've known for it forever, right? It's a big community coin. But in terms of like Little Timmy, I don't know what the hell that is, but it's one that we do a lot of comparisons with. And for example, if we kind of compare, right, so we are looking at something here. This is called market cap of, and it's just comparison to look at potentials of coins as to how much potentially they can go up, right? So Quai, again, is one we're bullish on. It's a small market cap. In this case, we're comparing it with Beam. I personally like another website called Coin Perspective. It looks like they may be out. The website wasn't working. I like that you could put in a custom market cap and you can put it in there. So in this case, we're comparing Quai and Beam. Beam, because it's the market cap size is about 414 million. We were looking for something comparable in like the $500 million market cap. We'll talk as to why here in a second. But even if it reaches that amount, which to me, in the peak of things, if it does somewhat well, it doesn't even necessarily have to do super well to reach that market cap. That is a potential of it, a potential 16x. Can it happen? Is a 8 or 10x more realistic? Maybe. Can it go to 0? Also maybe, right? But the reason we're choosing that market cap is if we compare Ravencoin, for example, in the last peak, it reached a market cap of about 2 billion, right? If this thing can reach 2 billion, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that a coin, if it does well, if it gets adoption, it potentially gets its Kraken listing, can reach a fourth of that, right? Even if it just reaches a fourth of that, there's still pretty massive potential, right? And realistically, it's only a 2x from where Ravencoin's market cap is currently, okay? Which I think, again, is also somewhat realistic, okay? So is that enough for me to fully jump in and be convinced? Not really, right? But out of all the coins, if anything is viable for this cycle, if anyone were to do well, Quai, Zealous can pop off because, again, we're talking about community. It was a popular coin. Can potentially do something. I would, again, for me, it's Quai or Ergo, right? Flux would have been on that list until this recent change. That's kind of it, and that's what kind of makes it more depressing. Versus, again, before, we did have Ergo, we did have Flux, but we also had Caspa. We also had Aletheum. We also had quite a few others that did kind of pan out to do well, kind of like how we showed here, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that these types of things will happen for Quai. It's just a possibility, and at its current market cap, is it worth getting into potentially? I think so, right? I don't think it's too bad of a coin. If I were to be mining, that's what I would be touching. But again, as we look at GPU mining as a whole, again, I wouldn't recommend getting into it or like purchasing hardware to get into it. Like, to me, I still do fully believe, though, it is 100% the best way to learn about mining, because most of us already have a GPU. It is the best way to kind of learn how to set things up, learn overclocks, learn the dynamics of tokenomics, of coins, understanding yield, profitability. That is the best way to learn. Not all these like shit boxes, these little BitX garbage, these little gold shell garbage that people like to shill. And shill for that purpose, to me, it's always made no sense. Use existing hardware. Use your GPU, use your CPU. Most people tend to have at least one. Most people have a computer of some sort in their house. Okay. But overall, man, GPU mining sucks to say. I really was hoping that it would do well. Again, this was part of my plan. Even like my cooling infrastructure in the garage was set up for that move, right? I did things a specific way to prepare for it, to eventually pivot into it. Didn't pan out that way at this point. Even if things go up, let's say Quai does go ape shit, it goes up to a 10x, Ironfish does a 5x, Chlor does a 5x. Do I think at that point it's going to be viable? This late in the cycle, if things kind of plan out and peak in Q3, Q4, it's not enough time to really add infra if we do have another potential bear market 6 to 8 months later, maybe sooner, maybe later. Who knows how it plays out? But I personally would not be buying infra for it. Again, if you're already at scale, if you already have solar, if you have less than 8 cent electric, then sure, why not? Because at that point you are pretty decently profitable. But for the majority of people, it's not something I'd recommend. Even on the degen side, again, we're still following. There are 1 or 2 coins, but I mean, that's a shitty amount of coins when everything going on, right? So kind of sucks to say, but to me, it's definitely in a worse place now than where it was even just 3 years ago, right? Which definitely sucks to say. Does that mean it's going to be dead forever, though? I don't think so, right? Just like we've done those videos, it's dead for now. Does that mean it will always be dead? No. Will there be less people mining? Absolutely. Is that flush needed? Absolutely also. Okay, so gonna see how things play out. Hopefully, if you guys, you've been mining, you've been picking the right coins. Hopefully, we do have peaks with Quai, Zealous, Ergo, or whatever the hell you've been mining. Hopefully, it does pan out. But in terms of like building rigs and adding cards and doing that whole thing, to me, is just the name of the game has been with ASICs, or realistically, especially this past like 12 months, buying the coins, right? Because even ASICs, like I mentioned before, the time for that was, well, about a year ago. To me, that was the latest you should have been buying. Right now, it's kind of buying the coin, looking at the market in case there is another potential bear market, and kind of repeating everything we've done, learning from the lessons, and just repeating the cycles, right? We'll see how things play out, though. But let me know in the comments, guys. Are you guys still GPU mining? Are you guys spec mining? Did you guys buy anything? Are you guys buying these CMP 170HXs? Let me know what you guys are doing. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it.